Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you to our viewers and our listeners and subscribers on all the socials. It's pretty weird having followers. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's new, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It's kind of different, and it's different having a personal following versus like a following for a different reason. They're not just here to look at me, which is kind of nice. I can share the blame a little bit.
It is.
You want to talk about lyrics first?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not? I think...
we had a good music episode last week, so let's do music first before we get into stuff today.
Okay. You want to go first today?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll go first today. Okay, so my lyrics that I picked for my song today are from AAA, or AAA if you're actually looking it up on any music platform.
Okay.
And it's by a guy, I want to say it's pronounced Ty Levi, but it's a good song, and it's a bit mellow, but the lyrics, hold on with me here, it says, the main chorus says, I want a AAA to you, baby. You can have a piece of my mind. We can talk about the weather. If it makes you feel better, we don't have to go outside. And throughout the song, the whole concept is like, it doesn't have to be a big deal. We can just talk about whatever you're thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
He says, tell me all the things that make you want to cry. Tell me all the things that make you want to die. Tell me all the things that make you want to come alive.
Okay.
And I just always... every time I listen to that song, it's a very calming, kind of sweet song, kind of sad, but it's really cool. I think in my relationships, the people I feel closest with are the people who will sit and listen, and people who I feel like I'm there for, and I'll listen to them. And you don't have to go on big fancy trips with people to have a good friendship or a relationship or whatever it is. You can just call them up and say, I'm thinking about you and I love you, and you can sit and sit on, a lot of kids our age, we sit on our phones together and we're like, yeah, we hung out all day and we barely said a word, because you can just feel close with someone and hang out and enjoy their time and their presence without needing to have other things involved.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool one.
Okay.
What do you got for me?
I picked out some lines from a Bee Gees song called Words.
Can you tell that we're different ages, Gramps?
Yes. And those
Hit me
are,
with the Bee Gees.
So here.
I don't know how many kids my age know the Bee Gees. Anyone whose parents showed them, but it's not a common talked about.
Okay,
group.
well, maybe it will be.
Yeah.
Okay. So the title is Words, and the line goes, you think I don't even mean a single word I say. It's only words are all I have to take your heart away.
Aw.
Yeah, that's all I got is the words.
The words.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny that we both picked songs about talking and words.
Yeah, well,
because we don't talk about what we pick until we get on the episode.
Yeah, when I was beginning to hang out with a woman, I oftentimes get caught up with, what am I going to say to her? How awkward it felt to say what I was thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
And it's...
I think that happens a lot with when you start talking to anyone. Definitely in more romantic situations. You get nervous, you're unsure of how to feel or what to say. Yeah. We'll have to get into some relationship or romantic stuff at some point for the podcast. Not today's episode is a little more serious. But I guess before we really get into this podcast, I'll shout out Cap Wealth in Tennessee. We're shooting at their office today. They were kind enough to let us use their studio while we're out here. Definitely really grateful for them. But we're going to get rolling in this episode. Today we got a big topic, and we talked about it a little bit last week if you guys listened to the episode with Brent. But he mentioned that at one point you had trigeminal neuralgia, and that we've talked about in both episodes a little bit the fact that you've worked a lot on finding a cure and putting in some efforts to raise awareness and work on raising money for research. So this episode is sponsored by the Trigeminal Neuralgia Facial Pain Research Foundation, and we have some great people who wanted us to share about the work they're doing, and I think it's a great episode to kind of go into your history with TN and how it all started.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready for it.
Well, if I talk too much, you ask me questions.
I'll break it up a little bit. I'll talk with it.
Well, we're going back 33 years.
Yeah.
And I was walking into my office one day, and a sharp pain hit my face, just like lightning.
Yeah.
Pow. And you never forget that. I mean, like, whoa. And then it went away. So it went away for a weekend retreat with our staff. We'll get into the business I was in some other time.
Sock Docs will be a different episode.
But we took off 55 people to one of the state parks in Tennessee. Our home offices were in Franklin, Tennessee. And I began to have pain from my ear to my throat. And I called my wife and I said, I think I've got an ear infection. So call the dentist, call the doctor. Let's find some
figure out
antibiotics, something like that. So that's what we did. I started taking the pills, and then the pain returned. Just sharp, pow, put me on the ground, scared me to death. And so now what do you do? It's 1990. It's now I'm a president of a larger company, and there is no internet. So you can't Google, what do you do if you got a sharp pain in your face?
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
Yeah.
You head off to the library. You call your doctor, of course, and doctor says, I don't have a clue. Not an idea. Nothing. Can't figure it out.
And a lot of, I'll kind of pop in here, a lot of people who have TN, I think similar to a lot of other illnesses, get misdiagnosed or are unsure of what it is. It's not something as simple as an infection that you can test for, or chicken pox or something where you can see it.
Sure.
It can be difficult to figure out what it is.
Sure. Even today, most medical schools don't give 10 minutes to trigeminal neuralgia. It's rare, but it happens.
Yeah.
And so to make a long story longer, I finally ended up with a neurologist who was trying to figure out, is this nerve pain? First, you have to go to the dentist. So the dentist says, well, it's very possible that pain right there in that tooth, it could be, you had a cavity. And it somehow, maybe the tooth is a problem. And so we'll do a root canal. Do the root canal. And then you say, Doc, it's the tooth next to it. And he says, no, that tooth doesn't have any problem at all. Now you go to the neurologist, and then you go to an oral surgeon. And in those days, 33 years ago, it was probably as many as 2 to 7 years before you'd get a diagnosis. Nothing at the library telling you about trigeminal neuralgia. So I began, neurologists put me on to anti-seizure drugs. Most of them were developed for epilepsy. Nothing was approved by FDA for trigeminal neuralgia. And I started taking anti-seizure drugs. And those basically would slow it down some. The episodes of pain, horrible pain, would slow down for a while, and then I'd have to take more drugs. And after a while, more and more anti-seizure drugs meant I was a little groggy, a little sleepy, fall asleep while driving kind of problem.
Yeah, that's an issue.
It is an issue when you're driving a Corvette home. And I think twice my wife smacked me and woke me up as we were driving. And the second time, 2 years of this. And we went into the neurologist's office and we said, Doc, our life is in the toilet. What are we going to do here? I'm taking so many drugs that I'm having trouble at the office. People are coming in and saying, Michael, I know you won't remember this, but before saying what they'd like to talk to me about. So he says, oh, I think there's a surgical option for this. And I really wanted to smack him. I mean, 2 years of these drugs. And now he tells me there might be a surgical option. He tells me there's 2 options. One, they can stick this hot needle in your face, and they can try to burn the nerve, kill the nerve in your face so that, of course, your face will get numb, and it may droop a little, maybe not. Or you can have a hole put in your head behind your ear, and a neurosurgeon go in there and try to find, if possible, an artery or a blood vessel that's beating on that trigeminal nerve at the base of the brain. And there's a guy in Pittsburgh, a doctor there named Peter Janetta, who's developed this surgery, and it might work for you. And so that's what I did. He said, you're young enough. Go try the hole in the head trick. And he has absolutely no statistics on whether this works or not.
Mm-hmm. So you were 50 years old and you said, I'm going to do a surgery and cross my fingers.
Yeah, about that. Late 40s. And so off we go. And at Presby, University of Pittsburgh Hospital, there were about 30-some people from all over the world there waiting to be operated on. And that's what they did. And I woke up the next day with all kinds of things in my, what do they call them, with those little sharp things that, staples. There were staples from the surgery around head. Of course, they had a big incision behind my ear. And Peter Janetta doctor was wiping off my forehead.
Did they have to shave your whole head?
No,
okay.
No, just behind
Lucky
the ear
you
kind
on
of
that.
thing, yeah. And so I said to him, Doc, there's got to be a better way. Taking over 2 years to find you. And I did wake up, not in pain. But on that same floor, the 30-some people that were there, most of them were not pain-free.
It didn't solve the issue.
It didn't work for them. I got lucky.
I was going to say, it's a miracle that you were able to be one of the people that found out what it was.
Yeah.
Found somebody who had a potential cure.
Yeah.
And then went through with the surgery and ended up being okay.
Yeah. He said, well, when you feel better, there's a new association forming called the Trigeminal Neuralgia Association, headed up by a woman in Barnegat Light, New Jersey, named Claire. She's got 500 names on a list of people around the country who have this, and it'd be nice if you could help her get that association going. And so when I felt better, I did. And I got
because you had retired from working at that point.
No, I had another year left.
And then you were going to be done working professionally.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that for sure.
Yeah.
I could have stayed working, but I decided I wasn't certain whether the pain would come back. And I thought, what happens? I may have just a couple of years of pain-free or months. And so I was very lucky that I could financially afford to retire. And that's what I did. And I did help the development of information for people who have trigeminal neuralgia or thought they did. Materials, patient materials, some books, helped form support groups around the country, and eventually became president of that association.
You did?
For some years, and tried to, they had 65 support groups around the country, and offices and people and counselors that people could call to get help. But meanwhile, the typical ways of treating the pain didn't change. 4 different kinds of surgeries. The drugs remained basically the same, anti-seizure drugs that help some and not others. And sometimes the surgeries created even more problems. And this went on for some years until finally I and myself and a few others became tired of the absence of people doing research to find a cure.
Yeah, you get sick of it.
Yeah. And so we got together and formed the Research Foundation.
Mm-hmm. And before we dive too deep into the foundation, what did the demographic look like, and has it changed really of the people who are diagnosed with TN?
Well, the youngest, 1.5 years. I've seen babies with trigeminal neuralgia, and how they diagnose that is a whole story. A nurse in Indiana had a child, a baby, that kept moving her head like this, just jumping. And she one day said that looks like lightning is hitting her, and she tapped in to the internet and found lightning-like
pain.
Yeah, and doctors were calling it the suicide disease, which created real terror in people. And there were people. We would get information from families saying he or she just couldn't take it anymore and took their life, and that finally we decided, a group of friends working with the association and others said, let's form a research foundation, something dedicated to finding a cure. So what we did was we got together at a regional conference, informational conference, and we invited 9 doctors into a room and we videotaped neurosurgeons and neurologists, basically. And we said, supposing we gave you $2 million and said, find us a cure, what would you do with the money? And it was very disappointing, their answers. And we thought, we're not going in the right direction. It looks to us we need to find scientists that are neuroscientists and neurologists or neurosurgeons that want to get into the basic science of trying to find out what's causing this disease. Where's the pain coming from? Where is it going? And so we put together the Research Foundation. Now we had to figure out how are we going to fund it? Where's the money going to come from?
Correct.
And so one of my friends and former president of the association, Mike, he decided that what we need is a web newspaper. If we create a web newspaper that we can tell the story about what we're doing online around the world.
And what year was this?
This was 2011. Yeah, 2011. And we began to tell our story. And we didn't have a podcast.
No.
It wasn't anything like that. So,
yeah.
So here, what ended up was a bunch of us volunteers. None of us were getting paid. And we decided to tell our story. And once we started doing that, people stepped forward, and many of them had family members of these people that were helping us along. One at the time was a woman named Elizabeth, who's in California. And Elizabeth and the family was very helpful in putting together a fund to develop a research project that would focus on genetics to try to find, we had some scientists who believed that the problem for many who have trigeminal neuralgia is genetic, that there are genes that are mutated and aren't functioning properly to protect the body. And so we put together a research project to find the genes responsible for many people. And so we had 9 locations in the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. that were taking DNA from patients who have trigeminal neuralgia. And then we created, well, scientists created another 7 or 8 different research projects. And meanwhile, I'm still rolling along, not in pain. And and for 5 years, 5 years after I had surgery, my wife and I would have a support group meeting in Nashville, Tennessee, and dozens and dozens of people from the state and surrounding areas would come and talk about their pain and share their stories. And so we tried to help them understand that they're not alone. And we would provide information. And so that was what I was up to for 5 years. And I learned that how many professionals, whether they're dentists or family doctors, or didn't have a clue as to what is trigeminal neuralgia. And still today, here it is, 2023, and you can have a patient call and say, I'm in a hospital, I'm in a doctor's office, and they don't know what's wrong with me. And so today there are people who've stepped up and who, for those who are interested in the foundation, they can go to just look up on the internet, the Facial Pain Research Foundation, facialpain.org, and learn about the research.
Definitely. I'll link below on YouTube and try to link as many other places, as well as anyone who wants to donate. If you have extra money or think that this is something that you care about, or have family or friends that this is affecting, you can definitely share those links to help donate to the research to finding a cure for this. Yeah.
So if you asked me, why did you do this? You know, why do people step up and try to make a difference? And I think probably those years of being involved in a support group and watching a 10-year-old kid in pain with trigeminal neuralgia listen to their story, or someone who is unable to go to work and can't support the family, or is totally isolated
because of the disorder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it was. Maybe some of it has to do with, why does man create anything? I mean, why do you create a new foundation or create an opportunity for others?
I think there'd probably be different reasons for everyone. Your reason of feeling personally affected by it might be different than somebody who joined and was working and their sibling or wife or child or someone else they were related to was dealing with it, versus the doctors and scientists who got involved because maybe they had seen patients who were dealing with it, and it was unbearable to realize that that's what they were dealing with and had no cure, or they just have a passion for finding solutions to issues in the world. It's a big issue to solve.
Yeah. Scientists are really different people. I mean, they're different from the docs.
Yeah.
Well, there are docs that are scientists, but not many. Some of them tell me that if you go to a meeting of 9,000 neurologists in Washington, D.C., there might only be a handful of those people that are really working on medical problems, trying to find a cure for something. It's
and it's a whole different realm. Research, academia, it is very much so niche, and only people who are in it really understand what's going on. Everyone else, I mean, the average person is operating their life without any thought as to what's happening, but with people in labs or the different kind of testing they have to do, and the roles that each person plays in that. I mean, it's really easy to think there's people in white lab coats somewhere who are testing different things on different people or looking into chemical compounds on different things in microscopes, but to actually be living in it and working with it day to day is such a game changer.
Yeah. Well, imagine the challenge of finding a cure to stop pain.
I mean,
can you imagine the accomplishment if you...
I think every human is like, if I could have one wish, I'd cure cancer, or I'd end human hunger, or one of those types of things.
Yeah.
And it feels so ominous, but there are people doing it every day who are looking for cures to these things, and especially TN being so painful, it feels like it's almost this never-ending urgency. Like it needs to get solved now, but you have to wait years to test things and make sure there's no side effects and have volunteers, so then you have to go find people who are diagnosed with TN. It's a lot.
Every day, there are people who are not pain-free at all. And here they are, day after day. And that's an incredible challenge for a doc. Now, some are working on treatments just to lower the pain, and that's good too, and if you go on TV and just look at the products that are being sold to slow down pain, you'll see pictures of people with back pain and shoulder pain, leg pain, foot pain, and use this compress, use this lotion, use this, and it's huge business. I mean, I don't want to mention certain products.
Yeah, let's not say names, but the industry itself.
One of the things that the Research Foundation does is almost every year or every other year bring together a group of scientists in one place, bring them all together and share what they're doing. And they ask each other questions, and they do it in a real confidential way. In other words, you kind of have to sign a piece of paper saying you're not going to...
You sign NDAs.
Yeah. What is NDA?
A non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, non-disclosure agreement. So you're kind of sharing secrets, scientific secrets, and they challenge each other. In really...
Because imagine, like, doing anything by yourself. You're clueless as to where you're at, if you're good at something or bad at something. You need other people doing it or in the same area to help push you further.
Yeah. And you bring in a few patients that are in pain because the scientists don't see these people. In other words, they ask questions like, what brings on that pain? And someone might say, well, if I chew, it's just, or if a breeze comes up and it drives me crazy and I'm in horrible pain over a breeze, or if I touch my lip or I touch my face, and that can bring on this terrible pain. And what do? I mean, some people just bite as hard as they can, hoping that it'll go away.
Yeah.
And some people drink, just whatever you can to just
find anything you can do to cope.
Yeah. And it's terrifying, especially if it's a child. And I've seen some kids that have to wear like football helmets because they'll bang their head against the wall. And it's really an opportunity for scientists not to even talk about funding. Where do you get your money? How can I get more money? And if you say to a scientist, what keeps you awake at night? I would say 90% of the time at least, the researcher who could be at a major institution, you name it, they're going to say, I worry about keeping funding for my staff, for the people working in my labs.
Yeah, because the only way they get employed is through that funding.
Yeah, and I worry about them. And it's almost universal. And then...
It's like being the CEO of a company in a way.
Yeah, and when COVID hit, it set our research back years.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a hard time.
Unfortunately.
It was a hard time for every industry, but especially an industry where you're constantly testing with people and you need to be face-to-face every day and know what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you have to put that on pause, and tests they could have already started had to go on pause, it's crazy to think about how much that really disrupts it all.
And a lot of funding, therefore, was lost. And so probably our foundation's biggest, the Facial Pain Research Foundation's biggest fundraising event of the year happens in Chicago, and it's called Laugh Your Face Off. It's a fabulous evening in a kind of supper club.
A comedy club.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
Yeah, 750 people who buy tickets.
Yeah, and they auction off a variety of different things that people donate, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
All the ticket proceeds go to the foundation.
Sure.
They get some wonderful comics to come and do stand up. Yeah, I've had the joy of going a few times. I couldn't go when I was young because I was not allowed in there. You gotta be old enough to sit at a comedy
Now
club.
You're old.
Now I'm old, so old. And so, I've had the joy to go. The experience in itself is great. If anyone is in the Chicago or Midwest area or just wants to travel and be a part of something cool and special, definitely keep your eye out. It's usually in the fall sometime.
Yeah. I have to say that there are some really creative volunteers all over the countries.
I was going to say over the world. You've got people all over the world.
That are raising funds. I mean, some are making and selling greeting cards in the UK.
Yeah.
There's a fabulous lady.
We talked with Brent last week about boots and bandanas. Like, people are doing all sorts of things.
Yeah. They have gambling nights, and they have golf tournaments. All over the country, people step up and say, I'd like to help you fund this research. and they contact the foundation at facingfacialpain.org, or they look up the Facial Pain Research Foundation website, and they offer how they can, ideas for how they can help the foundation move forward.
And it's kind of hard because you guys, I mean, from what I've heard in the research, there hasn't been any conclusive evidence as to why exactly it starts, or there's kind of conflicting evidence on different aspects when people do research. So there's no common, like, it's genetic, you get it from your parents, or you ate strawberries growing up and it comes from strawberry consumption. Like, there's no good way to actually say where it's coming from, so it's hard to identify why it's happening, how it's happening, where it's happening.
Yes.
And then it makes it even harder to diagnose for people.
Yes, but we're coming closer.
Yeah.
We do know 3 or 4 different causes right now.
You can't tell the secrets, but they're working.
Yeah,
they're working hard on a solution.
And I think it's going to happen. It's and I believe it. I'm excited about it, and
I think the cool thing about this podcast could be that someone out there could be listening and going through some of the symptoms of TN, or they could have friends or family or know somebody who is, and this could help them find, not necessarily, it might not find the solution, but it could help them find the research and connect with the right doctors, and they could be a candidate for some of the research they're doing for cures, because there are people right now who are in the research studies and are becoming pain-free because of the cures they're looking into.
Yeah. I'm pretty lucky.
You are.
I don't
so
know
lucky.
of anybody who's been as pain-free for as long as I have, and I just have to feel that it was just meant to be, that I could be a part of this.
And able to give back
to
it.
And I could put my creative energy into that. Now I'm, here I am on a podcast. Yeah. Who would guess?
But you retired from the foundation, so you're not doing that full time anymore.
No. There was a time when I did oversee much of what was going on in the foundation, but now
you decided you're too old.
Volunteers are involved. Well, I still have enormous interest, and they call me occasionally to help out.
You're in the loop. In the loop.
I'm lucky, and people still call me at home, and they say,
"They do.
My God, are you the guy that knows about face pain?"
I'll be sitting and doing work for the podcast or for something, and you'll come in and you'll be like, "This person from this place just called me about TN."
Yeah.
And I just scratch my head. I'm like, people come from all corners of the earth and somehow get your details.
Yes.
And they're like, you're the guy who knows the people.
Yeah.
And as much as it can feel like a burden sometimes, it's really amazing that you get to be that person to help people. I mean, Brent last week was talking about a friend of a friend that thought back to the boots and bandana days, and you were able to get them in contact with the right people to work on helping them.
Yeah.
But it's just wild. It's wild how much human connection can change the course of people's lives.
Yes. Yeah. So what are we going to do now that we've talked about all of this?
I was going to ask you, in your work in TN and working with the foundation, what things do you think helped you to be a better, I don't know what title you want to use, as far as if you felt like you were a leader in the foundation's efforts, if you feel like you were an asset because of your history being in charge of people and facilitating things, if you feel like you were a great delegator or great at finding good people to do the things. How did you feel like what assets or things did you do to make sure that the foundation was set up and running successfully?
I think the number one is, I think the role of a leader is to try to first be clear on what the purpose is of this.
Of what you're influencing people to do.
Of the foundation. Purpose is to find a cure. I mean, that's it.
So that was like you established the purpose
I
first.
don't, exactly.
Yeah.
We have to be clear on what our purpose is. And we have to be clear that at least 95% of the money that people give you is going to go directly into research.
Okay.
So we're not paying, we don't have a lot of
The overhead
employees,
isn't that
and
much,
we 95% of our money.
The other money is paying for websites and merchandise.
And less than 5%.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're clear on what the purpose is. Second, I believe my job was even when I was in business and head of a company, is to get ideas out of people's heads. Once you've got a purpose established, get the idea out of their heads, out of people's heads, get their ideas, rather than try to force ideas into their head. So I ask people, what do you find the experts and you tell them, look them in the eye, and you say, I want to find a cure. I understand you're the best at this. I want to find a cure. What do we need to do? What do you think we ought to do? Because in this business, people in this, I hate to call it a business, but in research,
in the industry
for many
research,
people, to get money, you have to assure them you're going to come up with a particular product.
You got to sell your soul.
Well, we're not going to assure anybody. And the typical stuff hasn't worked.
Yeah.
The surgeries aren't working for many. The drugs aren't working for many. So now we're looking for something new. We're looking for something different. So in science, some of that difference is going to not work. If you're going to really test something out, if you're going to create something that's never been done before, you got a shot at not making it. And so you've got to get the very best minds together and say, what do you think we should try? Okay. So there are times when an idea is presented and the brainiacs are going to say, I'm not sure that can work, or I don't think it might work, but we've got to do it anyway. We've got to check it off a list because it might work. And so right now, as a result of their work, they know where in the brain, our scientific team knows where in the brain the pain occurs.
Yeah.
Now we know.
Yeah.
But we had to test patients and, how'd you like to get into an MRI machine that's even more powerful than the normal ones that you're using and sit in there for 2.5 hours. And when the pain occurs, you push a button and they're watching your brain. And they're looking at where's the pain going and where's it finding. Well, once we know where in the brain it's occurring, then we have a target.
Yeah.
We know at least for that patient. And how many are there different places for different patients? And so it gets complicated. And so you have to be able to say, okay, we knew that wasn't going to work, that drug or that. We knew it, but we weren't certain. So we've got to check that off so we could. And so science takes time. And science means often you might test something for 10 years and it doesn't work. So it's
the scientific process. You never know until you do it.
Yeah, it takes patience. And so you've got to get ideas out of you. You asked me, what's the role of, what do you do, Michael, to make this happen? Is I ask people, what's the best way you can help us? And some will say, well, I got a golf tournament. I live on a golf course. Or
Or they'll say, I'm a great bookkeeper, or I'm great with finances, or I'm a lawyer.
Or I love to dance. I got a dance club. We could get together and dance.
Yeah. Or I have old lady friends who would love to help sit around and crochet things or do something to help.
Yeah. And so these...
So you found people and really understood what asset they would be able to bring to the foundation.
Outside of the science itself, but even with the scientists, we'd have to say, what do you think?
Yeah.
And that's exciting. And it is, and once people who are supporting the foundation, we ask them to tell their stories. So then now
you do a lot of great storytelling on people who found cures, and even the people who are still struggling with TN, but what their life looks like, and they're more than just the pain.
Yeah. And so that was my job.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we've got to do a financial report every year. IRS wants you to. So how do you find an accountant who's willing to donate their time in order to do your yearly tax return? Or how do you ask people? And so people get involved and have ideas, and you try them out. Right now, if you go to the Facial Pain Research Foundation, to their website, you'll see coffee for sale.
Yeah.
They created coffee. Coffee company created a new brand just to raise...
A new line just for fundraising for them. That's great.
Yeah. And that's pretty terrific. So if you like coffee, get on the website, buy some coffee, and the profits are going to research.
Yeah. That's a good one. This has been a good episode.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I did all the talking.
Well, you were storytelling.
Yeah.
It was a grandpa story episode.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
That's part of why we're doing this. So I can and the whole world get to hear about your life and what you've done and some cool stuff you've worked on. Don't feel weird about it. It's pretty cool.
All right.
But the good thing is, next week's Thanksgiving episode, so we'll talk about, I don't know, probably talk a little bit about turkey and what we're thankful for and family and get into the holidays.
I'm the only one who wants apple pie.
I'm not a pie person.
I love the apple pie. Nobody wants apple pie.
We'll pause the food conversation for next week. You guys come on back and listen to us ramble on about apple pie maybe.
Okay.
But go ahead and follow us at Me and My Grandpa on all the social platforms. And thank you all for listening. And we'll see you next week. Thank you guys for listening about the Facial Pain Research Foundation. Definitely check it out.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.